Today I want to take you to a city where they say ghost stories are as common as street corners. We are heading south to Selma, Alabama, an antebellum city that was once a Confederate munitions center during the Civil War, and later witnessed historic turning points in the civil rights movement. In a city so steeped in history and tragedy like Selma, every old house has its own creaks and whispers, but among them all, one mansion stands out not just for its beauty, but for the tragedy of its owner that still lingers over 150 years later. It is the crown jewel of Selma, one of its top tourist attractions. It's featured in prestigious architectural journals and added to the National Register of Historic Places. But for one spirit, it isn't a tourist spot, it is simply home. Welcome to Sturdivant Hall. Before we talk about the ghost, we have to talk about the house, because in this story, the house and the spirit are one. Sturdivant Hall, also known by its original name, the Parkman-Gilman House, is one of the most exquisite and finest examples of Greek Revival architecture in the entire southeastern United States. Imagine standing before it, a massive two-story mansion built between 1852 and 1856. Although built of brick, it's covered in stucco to give it the appearance of being constructed entirely from ashlar stone. Its most prominent feature is its 60-foot-wide facade with 6 enormous Corinthian columns, each soaring 30 feet, about 9.1 meters into the sky. The identical doorways on both floors are elaborately decorated with smaller Corinthian columns on each side. This was not a house built in haste. The first owner, Colonel Edward T. Watts, spent a staggering $69,900 at the time to build this 10-room, 6,000-square-foot mansion. He brought in artisans all the way from Italy just to do the intricate plaster and marble work inside. The marble itself was also imported from Italy. Inside, the decor reflects the growing taste for opulence in the 1850s. The first floor has exquisite plasterwork and millwork, especially in the drawing room and ladies' parlor, with Corinthian columns and paneled moldings. A cantilevered staircase sweeps up to the second floor. The house is crowned with a small cupola, features an intricate cast-iron balcony on the second floor, and has a semi-enclosed courtyard in the back that includes the kitchen, smokehouse, and 2-story servants' quarters. In short, this is a palace. It was the ultimate symbol of wealth, power, and social status in the antebellum South. It was a dream built of marble and mahogany. But as we all know, the most magnificent homes often hide the greatest tragedies. This house wasn't built to be a museum. It was built to be a home. And for its second owner, it became more than just a home. It was his honor, his pride, and ultimately his eternal prison. The haunting of Sturdivant Hall doesn't belong to the first owner. Colonel Watts lived here for only a few years before selling it on February 12, 1864, and moving to Texas. The man who bought it is our main character. The house was purchased by a man named John McGee Parkman for $65,000, and when he bought this palace, John Parkman was only 26 years old. John Parkman was a classic American success story. He wasn't born into wealth. He started his career as a mere dry goods clerk. But with talent and hard work, he rose up on his own. He started as a bookkeeper, then a teller, then a cashier, and finally, in his mid-20s, he became the president of the First National Bank of Selma. Imagine that. At 26, Parkman had it all. He and his wife and 2 daughters moved into Sturdivant Hall. He must have felt like he was the king of the world, standing at the pinnacle of success, looking down from the cupola of his palace. However, 1864 was a volatile year. The American Civil War was in its final stages. The economy of the South, which was based on cotton, had collapsed. Cotton prices plummeted. Parkman's bank, which had speculated heavily in cotton, suffered massive losses. The military governor of Alabama, Wager Swain, had federal Reconstruction troops seize the bank and arrest John Parkman on charges of mismanagement of funds. He was imprisoned in the county jail in Cahaba, a nearby town that was once the state capital. And it was here, in desperation and humiliation, that John Parkman made a declaration. An oath. He said that he would never leave Selma until his name was cleared. This is a curse Parkman placed upon himself, and it's the root of the tragedy. With that oath, Parkman unknowingly bound his spirit to an impossible task. Because as we will see, his name was never cleared. John Parkman passed on 3 years after buying the house in 1867 while still a prisoner. But how did he meet his end? This is where history and folklore intertwine, creating a mysterious fog. The official dry record states that on May 23, 1867, Parkman was met with his end while attempting to escape from prison. A simple, tidy conclusion, but also one full of suspicion. But the people of Selma tell a different, more dramatic story. This legend, recorded and made famous by the author Catherine Tucker Wyndham, has become a part of Alabama folklore. According to local legend, Parkman's friends staged a daring rescue. They disguised themselves as musicians and went to the prison saying they wanted to perform for the guards. As the loud music played, distracting the guards, it was the signal for Parkman to make his move. He climbed over the prison fence and ran toward the river where a boat was waiting to pick him up. But tragically, someone saw him. Shots rang out. Parkman jumped into the river and vanished. He was never seen again, at least not while he was living. But whether Parkman survived that event or not, his name was not cleared, and now his passing was also unconfirmed. His spirit was trapped forever in humiliation right in his own home. Not long after Sturdivant Hall was sold at auction in January 1870, from the $65,000 he had paid, it was sold for only $12,500. Immediately after Parkman's disappearance, the stories began. The servants in the house said they saw him. They saw his ghost walking in the backyard. They saw him standing in the cupola, the highest point of the house, looking down on the town of Selma. Years passed. The house was owned by the Gilman family, and finally in 1957 it was purchased by the city of Selma. Thanks to a $50,000 bequest from the estate of Robert Daniel Sturdivant. On the condition of establishing a museum, the house was saved. It was turned into a history museum and named Sturdivant Hall in his honor. And ever since it became a museum, John Parkman's presence has become even more apparent. But there's something different about the ghost of Sturdivant Hall. He is not a malevolent spirit. He is considered a friendly ghost. He isn't here to harm anyone. He is here because he believes he still lives here. The staff and tour guides have grown quite used to him. Tour guide Ann Thomas regularly leads tours and says, "It's a jewel that visitors from all over the world come to see. They come for the architecture, the furniture, the collections, but they also know about the other guest. When something odd happens, they just laugh and say, 'That's just Mr. Parkman acting up again.'" So what does his acting up consist of? First, the doors. This is the most common phenomenon. Doors open and close on their own. An employee named Cart Blackwell, who worked there since high school, recounted a personal experience. "I had a door that was locked fly open for no apparent reason." Second, the feelings. Many visitors to the museum have felt his presence, especially in the parlor and the upstairs bedroom. Sometimes while explaining things to a tour group, a guide will feel a rush of cold air go by. They look around, no one has moved, and they think, "Oh, Mr. Parkman is on the prowl." Third, some visitors have even captured strange images on film. And this is perhaps the most simultaneously eerie and poignant detail. Some people think they have seen impressions in the beds. One of the former hostesses said that occasionally the beds upstairs would look as if someone had just taken a nap on them. Not under the covers, but a clear imprint of a body on top of the bedspread. The spirit of John Parkman isn't scary, he's tragic. He is a tragedy of pride. He was so proud of his home and his family that even after his passing, he just wasn't able to leave. The story of John Parkman in Sturdivant Hall has become a part of Alabama folklore so famous that it was recorded by author Catherine Tucker Wyndham in her classic book, 13 Alabama Ghosts and Jeffrey. His story was titled The Return of the Ruined Banker. Today, Sturdivant Hall still stands an architectural gem. It's maintained by the city of Selma, Dallas County and the Sturdivant Museum Association. Thousands of visitors from all over the world come to admire the architecture, the porcelain collections, the dolls and the art inside. They come to see the house. But they may not realize that the true owner of the house might be watching them. Thank you for listening. What do you think of John Parkman's story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you in the next story.